The regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, October 11th, 2021 will be called to order at 7 p.m. At this time, would we join us for the invocation with Alderman Payon, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Actually, good evening, Mr. Mayor and colleagues. I've passed on that this wonderful duty to give the say grace tonight to my colleague from Ward 3, and I will do it next time at my last meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Payon. And as all of us know, today is Indigenous Peoples Day as well as Christopher Columbus Day. So I thought of something appropriate that I could read to everyone this evening. Please bow your heads. Prayer for our country. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of thy favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law we may show forth thy praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail, all which we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Here.
Alderman Tierney? Here. Alderman Payon?
Here?
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Present.
Alderman Shannon Meyer?
Here.
Alderman Gay?
Here.
Alderman Savage?
Present.
Alderman Arnett?
Present.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
This time I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended to add R29-21 Military Bowl Parade and Football Game and R-30-21 Chesapeake Region Accessible Boating Adaptive Boating Center on first reader.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Sure. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney? Aye.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is ceremonial items, City Council citation to Tammy Hook.
All right, Tammy. Hey. Yay. Okay. I'll come up there. I'll come to you. Yeah. It's the least I can do. That'll work. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just fog up if you're okay with that. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for all you've done. On behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we are pleased to confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition of your contribution to and work for the City of Annapolis. For more than 20 years, you have served as recording secretary to numerous city boards and commissions, including Planning Commission, Board of Appeals, Historic Preservation Commission, Maritime Advisory Board, Port Wardens, Heritage Commission, Environmental Commission, Annapolis Conservancy Board, Recreation Advisory Board, and the Art in Public Places Commission. You are known to all board members and staff as a professional, dependable, and always in good humour, no matter the challenges that you work with, and that sounded like a lot of challenges right there. You have worked nights and weekends after a full-time day job, and all while raising a family. Every board chair has celebrated your skills and dedication. You will be sorely missed. Today, we recognise and celebrate your significant contributions to the City of Annapolis. Thank you. And we want to give you
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And if you want to say a few words, and you might be reconsidering, you know.
Okay, I will say a few words. Oh, I guess I should stand up. Sorry.
Yes.
I wanted to say good evening, Mayor Buckley and City Council members. I'm a behind-the-scenes type of person, and I should know this by now, and I've been here long enough. I'm a behind-the-scenes type of person, so I will make this short and sweet. Thank you for the opportunity to work for the city for the past 25 years and to serve alongside of some of the most awesome volunteers that make up the boards and commissions that I had the pleasure of working with. I will truly miss each and every one of them, and they know who they are. It has been such a joy working with the top-notch staff that work in the Planning and Zoning Office, and the city is blessed to have them as part of the team. I've learned so much over the past 25 years, and I am very appreciative for this opportunity. Thank you. And I will miss every one of you as well. It has been a joy. Regina will keep you straight in my absence. And so will Hillary. And so will Dee. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, petitions, reports, and communications is next, beginning with update from the mayor.
So, coffee time, Dwayne. I want to start tonight's meeting by acknowledging a painful week for our city staff, and particularly the Annapolis Police Department. Last week, we lost one of our own, Annapolis Police Lieutenant Brian Della. I'd like to talk a little bit about Lieutenant Della before we all take a moment of silence. Lieutenant Della served the Annapolis Police Department during the entirety of his nearly 3 decades in law enforcement. He was a dedicated family man, and I got to meet his wife and children at the visitation and service over the weekend. We will have a citation to present to Courtney at a future City Council meeting when the family can be in attendance. Part of our path to healing our grief is to share stories. I've heard the same thing about Lieutenant Della a number of times over the past week. He loved his job and he loved protecting the residents of the city of Annapolis. He was the founder of the Children's Fishing Camp, and he could be found in pickup football games. Over his decades on the department, he served in nearly every capacity. He earned numerous commendations and accolades. Lieutenant Della was a great member of the Annapolis Police Department, a good policeman, and a solid human being. He will be missed. Now let's please take a moment of silence for Lieutenant Brian Della. Thank you. We now have just a few slides to share of Lieutenant Della. Thank you. Thank you. This is the last week of Hispanic Heritage Month, which we have acknowledged in downtown with the flags of various Hispanic and Latino countries. Each week over the past 4 weeks, we've hosted Tuesday health fairs in different neighborhoods, from Tyler Heights to Annapolis Walk, Madison Apartments, Annapolis Elementary. Tomorrow's clinic will be our last health fair at Mount Olive Community Life Center in Parole from 3 to 6 p.m. Residents can get a COVID vaccine, flu shots, diabetes and high blood pressure screening, meet with doctors and specialists from Anne Arundel Medical Center, plus learn about what other resources in the city and county are available. At the end of this month, on Saturday, October 30th, we'll be hosting our Day of the Dead Festival. That is at Maryland Hall. It is an out-of-doors and free event. Folks are encouraged to come out in decorative or traditional dress. There will be sugar skull face painters, an arts and craft fair, delicious food, an amazing lineup of musicians and acts, as well as a DJ and free activities for kids. It should be fun. Please wear your mask regardless of your vaccination status. And the boat show is back. The Pout Boat Show was this weekend, and the Sailboat Show is this coming weekend. We are so happy to welcome back this great event to the city. I'll do a little round of applause for the boat show. Thank you. We had a Faith and Blue event on Sunday. Clergy and Annapolis Police came out to People's Park for the Faith and Blue event, which is held in hundreds of American cities. The purpose is to build bridges and more engaged communities. Annapolis had a great turnout with pumpkin painting for children and outreach and resource materials from the police. And yesterday was the United States Naval Academy's birthday, 176 years young, and Wednesday is the 246th birthday for the Navy. We celebrate our neighbors here in downtown. It was in 1845 when the Navy chose between our location and the Brooklyn Navy Yard. They smartly chose our location on the banks of the Chesapeake. They got their start with just 50 midshipmen and a handful of professors on a 10-acre parcel of land called Fort Severn. Today, the Academy sits on 338 acres with 4,400 mids and 1,600 faculty. I'm proud of the relationship we've built with the Academy and proud that Annapolis is a Navy town. Happy birthday. Let's do this. The city has launched a 6-month pilot composting program. This comes in the aftermath of last year's wildly successful on-site compost program at Truxton, where we collected more than 10,000 pounds of pumpkins. There are 2 parts. The curbside pickup for residents of Hunt Meadow. We're trying out the program there first. Visit the city website to get a bin delivered and to get on the pickup route. The second part of the test program is a drop site at Truxton Park near the skate park. Follow the signs. Both programs will run on a trial basis until March 2022. The compost will go to local farms. We are doing this program with Annapolis Green and Veteran Compost. If the test period works out, we'll move to expand the program next year. Another environmentally friendly program we're going on is that has a goal of enhancing our urban tree canopy. It is a free tree program with the Arbor Day Foundation. Households may request up to 4 trees from a custom web portal, and the trees are sent directly to your home. There are 5 types of trees to choose from: black tupelo, eastern redbud, northern red oak, red maple, and American sycamore. By planting trees, residents can capture carbon, catch stormwater runoff, reduce energy consumption and utility bills through their proper placement. Plus, the trees beautify our city, provide homes for wildlife, and enhance property values. You can visit the web portal directly by visiting www.arborday.org/Annapolis or visit the city's website at annapolis.gov. Yesterday was World Mental Health Day. I want to remind city staff that earlier today, HR sent out the Employees Assistance Program resources link. Please utilize this service. Let's talk to one another and be supportive of one another during these stressful times. On Friday, I was privileged to attend a groundbreaking for the rehabilitation of the Universal Lodge on Clay Street. The city helped secure a $200,000 grant from the state for this work. The restoration is set to begin in November. Universal Lodge has a long and proud history in the old 4th Ward, not only as a building and meeting place, but as a headquarter where the ideas of Prince Hall Masons got turned into action. Many mistakenly believe that the history of Annapolis is rooted solely in the buildings of the colonial era in a half a dozen blocks surrounding City Dock. But Annapolis history extends beyond and must include the stories of what happened in buildings like the Universal Lodge structure. In the Civil Rights era, the Lodge was a meeting place where local activists planned pickets and sit-ins. We are proud to seek out this kind of grants to preserve these elements of Annapolis's city history, and we thank all of our partners. Also, the Maryland Senior Olympics are happening. It is an every 4-year statewide sporting competition for folks 50 and older. So we nearly all qualify on this council. The sports include everything from swimming, running, cycling, track and field to bowling, golf and tennis. This year, Annapolis got to play host to one of the events. Pickleball. The competitors played over 3 days on our new courts at Truxton, men's and women's singles, doubles and men's and mixed doubles. The winners can compete in the National Senior Olympics, which will be held in Florida next May. And lastly, I'd like to invite members of the council and members of the public to attend a series of listening sessions with me. They'll take place over the next 3 Thursdays. This Thursday, October 14th at Pip Moyer at 6 p.m. Next Thursday, October 21st at the Michael Bush Library at 6 p.m. And October 28th at Mount Olive Community Life Centre at 7 p.m. We will have information on city budget priorities, tornado and restoration updates, infrastructure projects. We will hear residents' concerns. We will also have some data to present on public safety and crime. But foremost at the event is our opportunity to listen to residents as we gear up for our next budget cycle. Thank you, everybody. Now let's get on with the meeting. Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is reports by committee.
Ellie's got a hand up.
I do have something. No, it's going to stay up too, sorry. Thursday, October 14th at 6 p.m., the Transportation Committee is meeting, and we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Nash on the transportation portal, if I have that correct, in parole. So it should be very interesting. This is something from by the county. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Attorney. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next Environmental Matters Committee meeting will be on October 20th at 3 p.m. And one of the things we'll be digging into a bit more is the Parkside Preserve issue that we've all been dealing with lately, and the pollution that came off that site. There's a lot to get into with that at our meeting. One of them is just because we've had I think there's a lot we need to dig into and figure out what's going on. My constituents are still not happy with that contractor out there. We've had violations that have been really ongoing they've been resolved for the most part now, but this contractor especially has just been a repeat offender out there. And it's been really frustrating as our constituents have had to deal with noise, dust, environmental, traffic issues. And they're just feeling really frustrated, as you could probably tell from this weekend. And I do thank city staff for getting the site into much closer to compliance. And but again, I think one of the frustrating parts is this is the third time this contractor has had serious issues out there. First time was back about more than a year ago. And I remember sitting down with the city manager, this is when they cleared all the trees, didn't have all their sediment control up, and saying this is really going to be hell for us unless this contractor's held to task in terms of how much visibility this project has. And sure enough, it has been hell. I've seen my family maybe 2 hours last week. I had about 5 hours of sleep every night. This is not something I want to be fighting, but it's been really frustrating for my constituents and for myself. We had a second series of violations back in June, July, and we had a special Environmental Matters Committee meeting and to address some of those concerns. And that's when the pollution went into the forest and the wetlands. And we were told that staff was going to increase the frequency of inspections. So instead of once every 2 weeks, they're going to go out 3 times a week, which is good. We were also told that Public Works would draft a new policy, which has not been done yet. And then fast forward to a week or two ago, and we had the third round of violations out of the site. So clearly, and that's where this picture is from It's an old picture. Again, I think I haven't been out to see how it looks now, but this is from September. That's what constituents sent me, and people just walking through the park, because this is right off the trail, sent me. And that is a clear violation of our code, of the state law, and that's what Maryland Department of the Environment confirmed. But my point is, the increase in inspection frequency did not work. And so I think that's one thing we want to dig into in Environmental Matters is why has the increased frequency not worked or didn't work? Because it seems like Public Works is still missing some of these violations and are taking a while to get things into compliance. And, and just really getting at why this contractor is a repeat offender. It's frustrating because, again, I did sediment control for probably near 15 years in my career. I did it with the city for 7 of those years. I know these laws inside out. I can tell you with certainty that the contractor was violating the laws. It's frustrating to see that. And I know there's more that Public Works can do. But instead, I've had to really fight way too hard just to get our laws followed. That's what's frustrating me as a legislator. We pass these laws, they're not utilized, not adhered to. So I'm trying to find out myself what I need to do to get these things approved. And again, these violations were confirmed by MDE. They were resolved by staff, again, which I appreciate. If you keep up that last picture for a minute. But it's frustrating. Again, myself and Jesse Iliff with the Arundel Rivers Federation have been through all the training and certification. We've informed staff, Public Works, about this, but instead they've been fighting with us a lot. And finally, MD has clarified a lot of these issues, which is good. But again, my constituents are rather frustrated. So there are things, we repeatedly get frustrated because we see, it took Public Works 5 days to achieve compliance, yet it took, staff 1 day to issue a permit renewal. And we're kind of frustrated at some of the priorities we see. We see the city not hesitate when it comes to fining people for parking tickets or building code violations, but when it comes to fining this big developer, I documented 12 different violations, which when I was inspector, I would have issued $12,000 in fines. City issued 0. When in this case, it's clearly due to negligence. So my last point is just what's it going to take to turn things around? We've seen pollution enter the wetland on property, future parkland that we spent $1.5 million to protect, to buy. We've seen trees in that same property impacted. We've seen this illegal discharge into Quiet Waters Park. And if that's not enough to warrant punishment, I'm not sure what is. We've also had traffic control issues, which is what I want this up for. It's not just environment. This contractor, this is a picture I took when I was out there with Jesse Iliff. I'm standing on the public street. You can see the heavy excavator on the left there. No traffic control. I was out there and a constituent pulled out of his house, the White House there, in a pickup truck looking for his dog who he lost. You can see his tire tracks. He had to drive around that heavy equipment with no traffic control. That piece of equipment could have turned around and injured him or even killed him. That happens too frequently with construction. This contractor had no control up. I've seen him do this downtown as well when they were putting in the Capitol Gazette Memorial, no traffic control. So if it's not environmental, what about public safety? What is it going to take somebody getting injured for the city to crack down on this developer and force them to do what they need to do and what they're supposed to do? I don't know what else to do at this point. I know I'm being criticized for being unreasonable and attacking staff. And look, it's not personal. I've worked with many of these staff people when I was with the city. They're good people. But there comes a point as a city council member, we are charged with oversight of the delivery of municipal services. That's in the charter. And I don't know how to do that without getting into some of the programmatic issues. How do we identify what policies we need to pass without digging into some of the records that we have in terms of inspections and how things are done? So I'll just stop by saying I really think that this indicates something is broken, and I want to try to work with staff or whoever to try to accomplish this through Environmental Matters Committee or outside, but we really need something to be done soon, because as you can see, again, there are a lot of frustrations going around right now. Thank you.
Any other reports? Alderman Shannemeyer, then Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Economic Matters meeting Tuesday, October 19th at 6:30 p.m. here in City Council chambers.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to commend my colleague for the work he's doing with this issue, and even getting people to engage in civic engagement and showing up and speaking out. And I support you on that, and I would hope that, you know, the assistance that you need from the departments is given. So that's that. I secondly wanted to say that I'm just, because this is all under human welfare to me. On the 6th of November, Alderman Arnett and I and Atlas Restaurant Group will be hosting a farmer's market in Eastport on Madison Street. I don't know if everybody knows, but Eastport, as rich as it is one of four poverty deserts four food deserts in the entire county, one of four. The other three are near Brooklyn Park, and so we're the only one even in this region. And so to combat that, the great folks at Atlas are sending a bunch of food down here to give away for basically pennies. And I'm, pleased to partner with Ward 8 on that and just get some participation going and serve that need for the people. Secondly, on October the 18th, that's when our next Housing and Human Welfare meeting will be. We'll have the members of the Housing and Community Equity Development Commission here, and they'll go over the hearing, their reports for the Affordable Housing Task Force, what they've done thus far. And they've put together some really good work, which will lead to a bill that we'll all eventually probably vote on next year. So I'm really excited about that. And we also have additional appointments to make to the board. So that'll be great. Otherwise, I think that's it probably for the end of the year. I don't know if we meet in November. No. So yeah, that's probably our last meeting.
Can you mention who Atlas is for people who don't know?
Yeah. So Atlas is the restaurant group that will be opening a business here. I don't know what road that is. What's Compromise Street. Yeah, at the building that sits there, that really nice one right on the water. And so they are just willing to invest in the community. They've hosted several job fairs so far. They're bringing one back in a couple of weeks. But this is where they can get in. And I think that's what it's about when we bring these companies and businesses here to an area. How can you get them to serve your communities and your cities? And they stepped up. Obviously, food is what they specialize in, and so it's easy for them to tackle this goal. So I'm really excited to work with them.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee took a
Ignore this.
meeting off, and we are meeting again next Wednesday, October 20th. I'd now like to take a few moments to read the city budget. Not.
Alderman Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Audit Committee will be meeting next Monday morning at 8 o'clock. We will be meeting remotely. If any members of the public would like to tune into that meeting, I would ask them to contact the the city manager's office and get the appropriate information for connecting with the meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, as the Public Safety Chair, I'd like to echo the sentiments of the mayor this evening regarding Lieutenant Della. I've known him since 2006, And it's a big loss to the city police department. So thank you so much, Mayor, for bringing that to our attention and to the attention of the public. The Public Safety Committee met last Monday, the 4th of October. On our agenda was the peace legislation, but out of deference and respect to Alderman Savage, he requested that it be removed from the agenda due to ongoing discussions, and we did do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules and City Government Committee met on October 5th. We had a pretty heavy agenda. 01221, the Police Enhancement and Community Engagement legislation, we postponed action at the request of Alderman Savage. 01921, Development Application Procedures, we gave a favorable recommendation. 02221, Administrative Hearing Officer, we took no action, and we spent the majority of our time addressing the Waterfront Maritime Zoning Districts legislation, 02521. We had to postpone action because we ran out of time. So we will be having a special meeting on Wednesday, October 13th, 3 o'clock here in Council Chambers, and we'll pick up 025, 029, 032, 034, 035. Thank you.
Thank you. Else, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
During comments by the general public, the public may speak on any item not scheduled for public hearing tonight. Legislation that is scheduled for public hearing tonight is O-32-21, Zoning Code, Use and Occupancy Permits. So we have some written testimony from Jacob Halbig, 122 Quiet Waters Place, Annapolis, Maryland. That is all the written testimony. And first signed up to speak is James Spearman. Please come forward, Jimmy.
Thank you. My name is James C. Spearman, Jr. I'm Assistant Secretary for Universal Lodge 14. And I'm here to testify in support of the waiver of the fees for the restoration of our lodge. I have with me our incoming Worshipful Master, Gregory Williams. If we may, he wanted to give some acknowledgments to some of the people that supported us.
I give it all to you quickly.
We wanted to give acknowledgement thanks to the mayor, city council, director of planning and zoning, Sally Nash, Teresa Wellman, John Tower, Michael Dowling, architect, Nicholas Mayer from the state, who helped administer the grant and securing the funds for us. And we just wanted to show our gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Nushi.
Good evening. My name is Nushi Herrera at 909 Wells Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. I wanted to testify about 09-2021. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm sure you're tired of hearing me, but my story is the same. I am a homeowner on Wells Avenue. We have a basement that we are licensed short-term rental homeowner, and we provide mainly housing to Naval Academy parents and even midshipmen after they graduate and they're young officers, as well as many other tourists that come through our city. I would like to ask the council this evening to vote for the ADU bill, please, with Amendment 3, because as soon as I put a stove in my apartment, which currently does not have a full kitchen, then I no longer can have the freedom to rent it short-term as needed when my family is not in town. And who knows, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years from now, I will retire. My husband and I may only be able to live in Annapolis if we live in the basement ourselves. So we like to have the flexibility to rent it short-term, and that's what Amendment 3 does for us. So I appreciate if you consider that, and let's hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Phil Reynolds, and please come forward.
I yield to Mary Mulvihill, if I might be able to order.
Okay, sure, no problems. Yep, please come forward. Yep.
Thank you, Mary Mulvihill. I reside in Ward 7 in the Beechwood Hill community, and I had the pleasure of being with you on July 26th to give a public comment at your meeting. And I'm here today on behalf of the Annapolis Stand Up Coalition, and we issued an email to all members of the council at 6:30 tonight and attached our first Citizen Coalition inspection findings from Parkside Preserve. I did bring 10 copies of that one-page inspection findings if for some reason you wanted a handout copy, but it has live links to visual evidence. So I would actually refer you to our but I do have it here. The Annapolis Stand-Up Coalition, we formed last week. We actually formed as a flexible coalition of citizens last Wednesday. And we were spurred because of a level of frustration that had risen so high that we felt it was our duty as citizens to start doing a civic action approach. We are a coalition of citizens who live in adjacent communities to the Parkside Preserve grading site, Beechwood Hill, where I live, facing the site, Hunt Meadow on the other side of the site, Hillsmere Shores that uses Quiet Waters Park and is watching damage happen to the park, citizen members of the Annapolis Neck Peninsula Federation, and citizen members of the Friends of Quiet Waters Park, of which I'm a member. And the frustration became because it's been a consistent pattern that has continued since I was last here, July 26th. We keep seeing violations, not only of the city grading permit, but we see violations of the city code. We see violations of our state environmental laws, our requirements for basic soil erosion, sediment controls, and stormwater that are just not being caught by the city's Department of Public Works inspectors, not being caught by their managers. And when we reveal things, it's taken visual evidence reports, for example, from our alderman for Ward 7, Alderman Savage, to really prompt even some real probing of it. And so our home values are attached to having access to Quiet Waters Park, to having clean air, and I can invite you to our homes in Beechwood Hill. We have sediment covering the backs of our homes from this grading site. That's evidence A, that there's a lack of sediment control happening. But when it goes into our park, our Quiet Waters Park, which feeds into streams, which feeds into the South River, which feeds in the Chesapeake Bay, this is a fire alarm that has to be sounded. So we decided we're going to stand up. We're going to stand up for the park. We're going to stand up for our right to clean air. We're going to stand up for the trees that can't speak, the habitat. We mobilized quickly. We issued a very quick flyer around. We had people entering the park who joined us, and we just called for a march to stick up for what needs to happen. And we got some attention, and at the end of our march, we announced 3 demands that we issued tonight in our communication from the Annapolis Stand-Up Coalition to all city council members here tonight, but I will just briefly state them on behalf of the coalition. We ask that the Parkside Preserve operations cease until the developer, Sturbridge Parkside, and the city of Annapolis commit to adhering to the spirit and the letter of city and state laws. Number 2, the contractor, Reliable Contracting, hire a third-party inspector to regularly inspect the site to ensure compliance. And number 3, the city of Annapolis adopt new policies and practices to quickly identify violations, require immediate corrective action, not the 4 to 5 days giving a developer contractor to remediate things that are harming our environment, and to impose fines and stop work orders to halt a pattern of non-compliance. That's probably the final straw we had. We saw on October 5th that the DPW Director Johnson issued a memo with 8 actions that were needed to be taken. And then the next day, we saw the city renew the grading permit for 1 more year, when there were outstanding violations, and clearly the site was not in compliance when that grading permit was issued for 1 more year. Last, I'll just say that's why we wanted to show you we are here seeking solutions with you. We are citizens who are trying to be a part of the good for Annapolis and also for the park that we all want to protect. So that's why we undertook our coalition's first independent citizen inspection of Parkside Preserve. We used DPW Director's October 5th menu with the 8 required items to be completely satisfied by close of business Friday to be in compliance. We found, and again, we did this from public locations, we were not at all on the grading site, so we had limitations, but we found visual evidence of at least 7 of the 8 items that were not in compliance as of October 10th, which is 2 days after the deadline. And we found in part 2 of our findings, A through G, so forgive me for not counting, I think that's some 6 additional pure violations. And I was asked to shoot a short video for you for violation A. Grading site's main entrance on Annapolis Neck Road, the one that you saw in Alderman Savage's photo, fails to comply with a stabilized construction entrance of Maryland standards and specifications for soil erosion and sediment control.
Thank you.
And the video was shot, and you can see that we show that it's not in compliance, and that's putting pollution right over the fence into all my my community's homes. Thank you for your attention, and we're here to solve solutions together. Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, would you want to come up?
I yield to Paula, if she's there. No, I'll speak. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paula Zeiker. I live at Beechwood Hill, number 120 Quiet Waters Place. And I'm just here because it just so happens that my deck looks out on the behemoth of Parkside Preserve. I found it ironic that we were talking about Arbor Day in the city of Annapolis, where Parkside Preserve removed 44 acres of trees. I'm sorry, 40 acres, more or less. So there's a little bit of irony there. They're grading, they've been grading back there for approximately a year, and it started out as noise violations beyond the 7 a.m. to dusk. So began with conversations with the contractor, with some compliance, and then we extended it to phone calls to the city, and then we, out of frustration, reached out to our aldermen, and we've had, with their assistance, Rob, you've been amazing. Ross, thank you so much. The senator's gotten involved, and we have seen some compliance, but I just want to point out that it took a come to Jesus meeting in order for that to happen. And in their saying that they're compliant, they really aren't, and Mary has amply evidenced that. We're a little concerned that after all this time, minimal fines have been given. I can also attest to the fact that if their inspectors are going out and they're not seeing any of these issues, and then we have this thunderous noise. I have a little clip, I'm sure you don't want to hear it, I don't want to ruin your evening, that we listen to all day long. But literal clouds of sediment and dirt that our residents have to basically run away from. There's just those very simple things that we know this development is going to be built. We're not contesting that. We're just asking that they be in compliance with the laws and the rules. Again, one other item is the grading permit renewal. Apparently, the developer is not in compliance, and I don't understand how the city can totally ignore code and requirements for renewals. That has not been followed. And I also question the allegiance of city management, because I truly believe in the trickle-down theory. And if the employees are doing their best to hold the developer to compliance, then why isn't their direct supervisors supporting that? Why aren't they being questioned about these issues that they're not following? And in closing, again, I just want to thank the aldermen and all of the other individuals who have come forward and supported whatever action we've been able to take. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. Hunt Meadow. I'm Phil Reynolds. I'm at 4 Westwick Court in Annapolis, Hunt Meadow. And Hunt Meadow residents have been directly affected by the careless way of Reliable Contracting is dealing with the Parkside Preserve. They're neither reliable nor preserving. So one of our several residents, I just want to tell you a story about one of our residents because it's timely here, I think. Living on Hunting Woods Road, she was proud of her backyard. She'd lived there for 14 years, but beginning in October 2020, that yard was flooded. There were rainstorms, there was large swaths of water coming out of Parkside Preserve through Hunt Meadow Common property into her neighbors, into her lawn. And there were up to 12 inches of water over her yard, and it never dried out. So she's got a mud flat for the backyard. So Parkside Preserve did try to clean up their storm drains, but that didn't really have the end effect. Hunt Meadow Landscape Committee, which my wife chairs, paid $2,000 to build a swale on Hunt Meadow property to try to deal with that. But that wasn't enough. So the property owner actually had to pay herself $5,000 to build a rock swale and various native plants to deal with it. So we request Reliable Contractor to pay $7,000. They did that kind of damage, they should pay for it. The fines charged by the city are ridiculously small change for a large firm like Reliable. And so we really request that they raise the fines to be realistic for these companies. So needless to say, the water that came through this lady's backyard went into Aberdeen Creek, went into the bay. So the same issue that was raised before is here. Small other issue, Hunt Meadow residents and others used to enjoy walking a beautiful trail from Fox Hollow Lane to Quiet Waters Park. Last year, our trail was declared private property, and we were banned from going on our own trail. In addition to tearing up our path, the Reliable has 2 deep open pits, presumably for sewage or water connections. But they've spoiled our access to park, and they've given no indication of when we'll get it back. They should complete the work. They should fill in the 2 pits and reopen the trail, which is on Hunt Meadow property. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to stop the flow of water into Hunt Meadow, get the reimbursement of $7,000, increase the fines, and reopen our trail. Request the City Council and the city to look into these issues and take timely action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Rick Lober is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Rick Lober. I reside at 84 Conduit Street in Annapolis. I'm the president of the Ward 1 Residents Association, and I'm here to testify in support of 09-21, the ADU bill as originally proposed by Alderman Gay. We feel it will go a long way to help with the affordable housing problem we do have here in Annapolis. However, we also feel strongly that Amendment 3, allowing SDRs in these ADUs, goes against the intent of the bill and will dilute its primary end result. SDRs are not low-cost housing. They go for $100, $150, $200 a night here in Annapolis. Again, that's not low-cost housing. I've listened to a lot of the testimony the past few months and people supporting this bill, but it's always the same issue. It's the SDR issue. And frankly, I think most of those people, not all, but many of them really have no intent of ever renting these long-term in an affordable manner. It's really all about the STR issue once again. So I would ask the council to vote in favor of the bill, but not with Amendment 3 included. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jay Antonelli.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Good to see everybody again. Jay Antonelli. I guess the timing is perfect here. I'm here in support of 0921 and amendments 1 through 3 that were passed by the Planning Commission. Again, I live at 1206 Poplar Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. I do recognize that there is a need for more affordable housing in the city of Annapolis, that it is a problem. But I believe that forcing residents with an ADU who want to build an ADU on their own property, that's not the answer. Because in my case, where I do have an ADU, which has a legal short-term rental license currently right now, which I pay a 7% tax on every month on every single rental that comes in, there is no way that I will rent that long-term. So the whole purpose of the ADU and creating it long-term, it's not going to work, at least in my case, and I know I'm not the only one, because sharing a backyard, which in my case would be, sharing a backyard with someone I don't know long-term is not what I want for my family. I have a young child, 2 years old. If someone's in for a weekend, they're out after 2 days, that's fine. I also like to keep it open for my visiting family, my extended family, all from out of state, who come in and visit me for holidays, and I can keep it open during that time so they can come and visit with my family. So the other thing, I'm sitting in the back and I'm thinking of different things, and it is a loss of revenue for the city if we go to a long-term rental. You guys collect 7% sales tax. Let's use that sales tax and create more affordable housing for the city. Use what we already have to help us make more affordable housing. It's just an idea that, we can think of different ways to create more affordable housing, but forcing people to rent their own property in an owner-occupied situation, to rent their own ADU into a long-term rental, that's assuming that they're going to want to do that. And I know in my case, I don't want to do that, so that wouldn't help me or help the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak?
Hello, Annapolis City Council. My name is Susan Margulies, and I live at 113 Conduit Street. And I just want to say that please note that as I approach the podium, the first thing that I do is I state my name and my address. And I want to remind all of you city council people that the act of doing that has defined the conversation on ADUs, because our city is full of people that currently have an illegal ADU that they're using as a long-term rental. They cannot come here to this podium and speak. Our city is full of people that this conversation has controlled out the door. So the reason that all you hear from is those of us who are using our ADUs as short-term rentals is because we are legal. We are legal, and we can come and we can speak to you without fear. And this bill is taking that away from us. It's taking away something from people that are legal. And so the act of holding the conversation in this room, in this podium, where I have to self-identify with my name and address, has excluded the very people that this bill is trying to help. The people that want to build an ADU, that have an ADU, and they're using it for a long-term rental now. So as you make your decision, as you consider what ADUs are used for, don't just consider the people who are one stove away from being an ADU. Don't just consider the owner-occupied folks who are using their ADU as a short-term rental because their family comes in for Thanksgiving, their family comes in for Christmas, their family comes in over the summer, and they can only use it as a short-term rental right now. Otherwise, it will stay vacant. So I'm asking you to pass this bill with Amendment 3 and keep a big open heart for all the people that can't come and testify tonight, and to keep a big open heart for homeowner flexibility, because this bill is not just about creating more units, creating more affordable housing units. It's about making home ownership more affordable. And I had the pleasure of speaking this week with Tammy Brashenin, the Director of Advocacy for the AARP, the American Association for Retired People. And the very first thing she said to me was, the position of AARP is in support of ADUs because it makes home ownership more affordable. And the way to do that is to say yes to flexibility, to say yes to short-term rentals, yes to long-term rentals, yes to the transition in between. So just get the units built and help your homeowners, and everybody wins. Saying no just limits. It's just limiting, and that's all it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Thank you. Nice to see you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Hamby. I live at 7055 Bayfront Drive. I'm speaking in support of Ordinance 0921 and Amendment 3 specifically. And I would like to tell you a little bit about my present-day self. I'm 52 years old. I have 2 children in college, and I have hefty bills to pay. I supplement my income with short-term rentals in my walkout basement apartment. I pay taxes on my rental income. My guests pay lodging taxes to the city of Annapolis, and the tourists that come to my home do spend money at the many businesses, local businesses in our community. And this is the way I feel like I help pay it forward. I short-term rent, and by all accounts, I am successful. I am contributing mightily to our local economy. I short-term rent, and it is good. You fast forward to my future, my 57-year-old self is taking care of my 90-year-old father. My father is independent. He does not want to be a burden, and he likes his personal space. I no longer short-term rent, as now I house my father in my walkout basement apartment. I look in on him as he wishes, and I care for him to the best of my abilities. I house my elderly parent, and it is good. Further on in my future, I am 67 years old. I have 4 grandchildren. They run amok in my house. 2 of them visit often because one of my children lives nearby. The grandchildren are my pride and joy. I'm happy to have them in my walkout basement apartment for a little peace and quiet. I'm tired, but I enjoy my family visiting. I short-term rent because that helps supplement my retirement income. I'm tired, but I'm happy, and it is good. Further still, I'm 77 years old. My grandchildren are older, and they are very involved in their sports and their supplemental activities, their extracurriculars at school. I now long-term rent my walkout basement apartment to a single young adult trying to get on his feet. I offer him a private space and low rent, and in return, he helps me maintain my yard and my home. It is a symbiotic relationship, and it is good. Every one of these scenarios is valuable, a valuable use of the space. Every single one of these scenarios is good. These opportunities can coexist. It is not a choice of one versus the other. So please help me be successful in all of my present-day self and my future selves. Help me to be successful by passing 0921 and passing Amendment 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and speak. If anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Anastasia Hopkinson. I live at 1036 Harbor Drive in Annapolis, Maryland. And I'm here on behalf of the Annapolis Stand Up Coalition to thank Alderman Savage for his willingness to listen to citizens' concerns and take action. This is regarding the environmental issues at Parkside Preserve, a 40-acre property being developed for residences. The first citizen contacted the city in November of 2020, almost a year ago, and got no response. Another citizen contacted the city in December of 2020 and got no response. Another citizen contacted the city in January, got no response. Finally, in February, another citizen contacted the city, and graciously, the director of the Department of Public Works walked the project with that citizen and explained some matters to them and promised to do something, but nothing happened. There were more contacts with the city in March, April, May, June, nothing. Usually no response. Finally, in July, the citizens contacted Alderman Savage, and he came to them, listened to their concerns, and went back to the city and asked for effective action. There was a response from the city and promises to do something to repair the problems, but nothing effective happened. Alderman Savage went back in August to the city, made requests, and nothing effective happened. In September, Alderman Savage went back to the city again, and nothing effective happened. This is October. We're a year on almost to this saga, and Alderman Savage again approached the city more forcefully, and really something did happen. I would say, in my very naive estimate, about 80% of the problem was cleaned up a week ago, probably because citizens were getting well organized and that was known. So Alderman Savage exhibited the traits we want to see in city council, county council, state government: response to citizen concerns and effective action, for which we are, Alderman Savage, very grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Cantori at 105 Eastern Avenue. And I just want to say, in support of Ordinance 921, I want to say thank you very much to the leadership for Alderman Gay and Alderman Schondemeyer. You both have taken a risk by introducing a bill like this to the council and to our city. You didn't have to do that, and I really appreciate you doing that. I want to address a couple points of this bill. One is, I know there's been discussion about this being affordable housing, and it's important to understand that ADUs, just by the frank size, the fact that they're relatively small, are affordable per se. But the affordability also works both ways. It works both for the renters and for the homeowners. And that's what we've heard tonight, is that can work both ways. Short-term rentals can help a homeowner remain in their house and afford their mortgage payments. So that's one form of affordability. But I also want to say we can't put all the burden of affordability on ADUs. Most municipalities that have passed rules that allow, and by the way, more than allow, they promote ADUs, not just permit them, but promote them, have found that they can add additional language and additional bills on top of that to help them become more affordable, such as subsidies for homeowners who are willing to go ahead and rent to someone with a lower income. That's just one quick example. There's many other things out there that you can do to help a homeowner maintain an affordable ADU as well. So I just wanted to point that out. They also have loan programs that help homeowners construct an ADU. Because the truth is, right now, most ADUs are constructed by people of means. They have the ability to have enough equity in their house, or they have enough cash or other resources available to build these, which, as you know, are well over $80,000 to $150,000 to build. So Lastly, I just want to say that your leadership very much appreciated, but I don't appreciate the fact that there's been so many amendments that basically water this bill down. A lot of municipalities find that after they've passed a bill like this, 2 or 3 years later, they find only a dozen or a half dozen ADUs are built under that legislation. And there's a reason. Is it because it's too convoluted and too difficult? The illegal ADUs, of course, continue. But you need to go ahead and look at this as becoming a more progressive bill in the future. And I urge you to look at the AARP has best practices. California, for example, California has no parking requirements. All ADUs are by right, a ministerial approval process throughout the state of California. And they have no restrictions on short-term rentals, and they also have no owner occupancy requirements. So that's the standard we need to meet in order to get ADUs to become a common, affordable housing option for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie George, and I reside at 695 Americana Drive here in Annapolis. Mr. Mayor, council, staff, I'm here tonight to urge the passage of 0921, the ADU bill, to bring additional housing to the city of Annapolis. It seems to me in the 6 months that it has taken this legislation to reach a final vote, we have forgotten the initial intent of this bill. This bill was brought forward to simply ensure additional housing stock for those who could not afford to buy a single-family home and wanted a more affordable option than a typical multifamily apartment or condo. It was not intended to fully resolve the issue of a lack of affordable housing. Legislation was introduced on first reader in May, presenting a 10-point plan from the Housing Task Force to address housing affordability. That legislation has very specific strategies to address affordable housing. I am hopeful that that legislation will be reintroduced with the next council session. Let's take just a moment and look at the journey of this bill, 0921. Back in June, our city's own planning commission reported this initial legislation out favorably with just 3 amendments, notably recommending inclusion of short-term rentals only for owner-occupied dwellings. As one of the council's final acts of this session, I urge you as free-thinking council representatives to consider what ADUs can do for your constituents. An ADU will allow your homeowners to realize the highest and best use of their own property, including the option of short-term renting if they so choose. An ADU will allow a long-term renter to have a housing option that is priced as much as 20% below market rate. Having ADU legislation in place will ensure that the city can derive revenue both from the rental of the ADU and from increased tax revenues as the property is upgraded. With simple city inspections, environmental and safety concerns can be addressed. This does not have to be complicated. You, as a council member, have an opportunity to ensure that your homeowners have a chance to maintain their home ownership in a city with high housing costs and to potentially age in place. Your other residents have an option for housing that is near their place of work, thus reducing their carbon footprint and generating rental income inside the city rather than inside the county. Having more affordable options for homeowners and renters alike does not solve all the housing issues in Annapolis, but it is a necessary first step. It is a step you can take tonight by voting aye for 0921 with a positive vote for Amendment 3 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Okay, thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Comments by the general public. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item is appointments. AP 4021, the appointment of Todd Powell to the Heritage Commission.
There's a motion to approve AP 40-21.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next appointment is AP 4221, the appointment of Kevin G. Smith to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Is there a motion to approve AP 42-21?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is consent calendar, approval of journal of proceedings, regular meeting minutes.
Any objections to that? Thank you. A first and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay is out of the room. Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is public hearings. First item, or only item in public hearings, is O3221, zoning code, use and occupancy permits.
Anyone signed up to speak on that? Would anyone like to come forward and speak on O32-21? Okay, I declare the public hearing on O-32-21 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, legislative actions are next. First reader, R2821, Universal Lodge number 14, permit fees waiver.
Is there a motion to adopt R-28-21?
So move.
Second.
Okay.
And can I also be added as a co-sponsor?
Same here.
Same here.
I'd like to be added also.
Think it's gonna pass.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Next item is second readers, R2221, South Annapolis Yacht Center, public water access.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, before we get there,
Yes.
I'd like to be put on as a sponsor for the Universal Lodge legislation.
No second reader?
R2821.
No problems.
For the permit. For the
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Annette.
I would move that we postpone the resolution. The Building Board of Appeals has yet to hear it, and that's important to the outcome of the resolution.
Can I get a second for that? Second. Okay. Alderman Shannon, had your hand up first.
I apologize. This was a point of order clarification unrelated to R2221. Since we have already voted on that, though, I will withdraw my question.
Okay. Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I had a question that's related to R2821. Why aren't we just moving it to second reader and voting on it tonight and finalize it?
We still have time to vote on it. So.
Oh, okay.
One more meeting. No. So there's a motion to postpone.
You have a motion in a second.
And a date?
To the next council meeting.
Okay, next council meeting.
Or the first one in December.
Mr. Mayor?
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, roll call? With roll call?
No.
No?
Yeah. No, it's
No?
not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The
Point
next.
of clarification and procedure. I apologize if I'm misunderstanding this, but didn't we add R3021 and R2921 as first readers to our agenda
Yes.
when we voted on the amendment as agenda?
Yes.
Yep, we're coming up to them. Yeah.
They go to the bottom.
Those go to the bottom? Okay, thank you.
You have to complete the published agenda first.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. R2721, itinerant merchant sales in the Historic District Halloween celebration.
Is there a motion to adopt R-27-21?
So moved.
Second.
Second. I think we're going to call the roll on that. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is O921, accessory dwelling units.
Is there a motion to adopt O-9-21 on second reader?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. And before we go into the amendments, Can someone tell me the one that grandfathers everyone? Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Mr. Mayor, Amendment 11 is the grandfathering specific amendment. However, and Dr. Nash, could you please clarify this for me? The bill as currently written would still allow, if you have an existing short-term rental and an existing short-term rental license, you could still renew that with the city, correct? Even if it's a, let's just call it detached separate bedroom?
If it's an attached separate bedroom with no stove, you can continue to renew your STR.
Okay, so you can continue to renew the STR. The bill as written will not take that away.
Okay.
That's all.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
But that wouldn't work for a garage or something.
As long as it doesn't have a full kitchen, meaning a stove, and you're renting it like a guest bedroom, you can continue to do that. We would not consider that an accessory dwelling unit because accessory dwelling units are not allowed now, so you wouldn't be able to have a legal STR that was an accessory dwelling unit since there's no such thing right now.
Right now, okay. Alderman Paone?
Thank you. So somebody in Mr. Antonelli's position, for example, now he's not the only one like this that has a rental. Well, there are people that have redone their garages, that sort of thing, that may very well have STR licenses right now. This legislation does not affect their ability to continue. Is that what you're telling us?
Right, only if they want to have a stove.
Okay, so for, if they go to sell the property, that may be a selling point, but, you know, just to go ahead and continue to rent, it doesn't really affect that one way or the other, correct?
That's correct.
That's exactly what I thought. Thank you very much.
Alderman Tierney?
Okay, I'm probably going to bore you with trying to reiterate this because it's a very important point. The majority of the testimony that we've received, both in writing and public, are residents that are very concerned. Some of mine that they have a basement and they have a legal STR license. If this bill is passed without Amendment 3, they can continue to have their short-term rental license. However, if they want to comply with the new ADU bill, at that point, they would have to make a decision. Okay? Yes. So if they want to add a stove and the requirement of an ADU, then they would have to decide at that point, okay, I have to make a decision. Do I want a stove? Do I want this to be a dwelling unit? Or do I want to just continue my short-term rental so I can afford my mortgage? Okay, I think that's a really important point because a lot of the testimony inferred that we were taking that short-term rental license away from them if this bill passed without Amendment 3. So thank you very much, Dr. Nash.
Can you just repeat that again, Alderwoman Tierney, just so I can be clear in what you were saying?
Okay. I'll use my example. I have a lot of residents that have a basement unit that they have a licensed short-term rental. Mm-hmm. This bill without Amendment 3 is a bill that we've never had before for accessory dwelling units that says, okay, if you want an accessory dwelling unit with a kitchen, with a stove and meets the definition, we don't allow you to have a short-term rental because the objective of this bill is to introduce moderate housing. That's an indirect way of saying if you have a short-term rental and this bill passes, we will not take it away from you. You can continue to be doing what you're doing. You just can't submit an application for an accessory dwelling unit. it's a misnomer when the testimony, people have testified and they say, I have an accessory dwelling unit. It's kind of weird because we don't have a code for them. You know what I mean? And so it appears that they're very concerned about their short-term rental license. But we will not be taking that away from them. It would be status quo. They can continue to be doing what they're doing. If they want to, like, upgrade, I guess, and add a stove and make it a legitimate dwelling unit with the requirements of this new code, then they would have to make that decision on whether or not they want to continue it as a short-term rental or not.
On we go.
Did I confuse you, Ross, even more?
I have a couple of questions, because I think Alderwoman Tierney has described it well, as well as, those who come forward with testimony. So my first question, I'm assuming that we have stove defined in the city code so that if you have like a plug-in burner, that does not count as a stove.
It's anything that uses 220 power.
So who can measure that?
It's a special kind of plug that an oven has to have because it's a high voltage.
And if you have that plug, then you are eligible to become an accessory dwelling unit?
You are not yes, you are.
Okay. And so just for example, and I hate to keep Mr. Antonelli, I hope I pronounced it right. I hate to keep using him as an example, but his case is the one that we've heard a lot from. So would he, with or without Amendment 3, if we don't accept Amendment 3 tonight, he would still have access to a short-term rental license. My question is then would he have to go through additional, would he or any other neighbors have to go through additional steps of inspection? Because now they have, would us passing and defining accessory dwelling units tonight make his short-term rental ineligible for a new license? Would he have to go through an inspection process again?
With all due respect, I would ask that you not answer that question. Your question should be directed more generally to the general population, not to any individual.
Okay. So if a family had, like a basement and they currently have a short-term rental license and Amendment 3 is passed, would they be able to keep their short-term rental license without going through additional inspections that would prohibit them from being short-term rentals?
Yes.
So really, we kind of do need to pass Amendment 3 so that they don't have to go through the additional inspection. Or so that they could keep their short-term rental license without any worries of inspections that would, disqualify them from renting, really.
No, they wouldn't. If you passed Amendment 3, if you did not pass Amendment 3, they could continue being an STR with just that usual regimen of inspections, which is an annual inspection that our office does for short-term rentals. It would have nothing to do with accessory dwelling units.
Okay, so they fine, really. I mean, is that
right? It would have nothing to do with accessory dwelling units unless they wanted it to become a completely separate dwelling unit with a stove and a kitchen.
And then that would make it ADU eligible.
Then there would be an issue if you did not pass Amendment 3.
Yeah. And that's where I get conflicted, because I have spoke to some constituents and stuff, and you want to look out for these families, middle-class families, trying to provide for their families, and particularly here in what is we already know, a high cost of living area. And so I don't know. That's just, I'm still confused because of, I want to be sure that the inspection process doesn't come back to bite them in the long run, so.
You could have an accessory dwelling unit that is never inspected by a rental inspector if you don't rent it. You might have an accessory dwelling unit and you have your son stay in it. Well, we're not going to have an inspector come every year and inspect it. We only come if there is a rental license application. So either a long-term or a short-term rental license application, we will come for an inspection.
One at a time, and if you can
Mr. Mayor.
talk us through them as you present them,
Mr.
and we'll
Mayor.
vote on them. Hold on.
I'd like to
Renell
make a
Charles?
statement, please.
Yes.
As many of you know, the Greater Parole Community Association Incorporated in Ward 3 has had a lot of conversation and discussion regarding the ADU legislation in general. They met with Alderman Shandemeyer several months ago, and this has been ongoing probably for about approximately a year. But I want to read to you the official statement from the Greater Parole Community Association Incorporated. They've been in existence since 1951 for 70 years and have approximately 484 members. Alderwoman Pendell Charles, Greater Parole Community Association's position has not changed regarding the ADU legislation. We have written several letters and stated every time we can our position. We're very concerned about enforcement. As we have pointed out to you and the mayor several times, the parole community currently is plagued with many illegal ADUs and residents living in substandard and illegal conditions. How the city council can think of adopting legislation on this issue with the current problems and lack of manpower for education and enforcement is a mystery to the Greater Parole Community Association Incorporated. Perhaps seeing is not believing in the Greater Parole community. Our position on this legislation is unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you want to move the First Amendment? Alderman Shandemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we move the, I'm sorry, for point of procedure. So
I think we should just go through them one at a time, because I'm sure a lot of us, there's a lot in front of us here.
Okay, so amendment number 1 was just kind of a quick fix in the language as.
So can you move it and
Yes,
then
I'd like to
get
make
a
a
second
motion
and
to move
then
amendment
talk
1.
us through? Okay.
Second.
Okay. Amendment 1 was something just kind of to fix the bill as written. It would have required, the bill as written caps an ADU floor space at 850 square feet. And what that means is if you have, let's say, a basement you wish to turn into an apartment, and the basement is larger than 850 square feet, you would need to construct walls in order to shrink that living space, adding to the cost for the homeowner trying to build a source of housing for folks. So this lifts the cap on the 850 square foot limit if it is established within the existing footprint of the principal structure.
Everyone sound reasonable, everyone? Good? Okay, we're going to vote on it. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
How was it? Roll call. Thank you.
Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
No.
Alderman Pendell Charles?
No.
Alderman Finlayson? Aye. Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
It passes.
Okay, Alderman Shandemeyer, please move number 2.
Amendment number 2 was a planning commission recommendation.
Okay, can you just move it and second? Yep,
I'm sorry, I'm used to the committees where I just go into them. I would like to move amendment number 2.
So move.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so amendment number 2 is a planning commission recommendation that would remove the off-street parking requirement from the bill. My rationale behind this is, one, based into cost concerns. Studies from the Brookings Institute and other urban planning centers have shown that a off-street parking requirement can add somewhere between 5 to 15% monthly costs in rentals or in mortgage payments to a structure. So that would increase the overall cost of the unit itself, and we would essentially be subsidizing driving and car dependency at the expense of housing for families. The second concern I have is environmental. We all know that if we increase the amount of impervious surfaces, it causes stormwater runoff issues, which making a requirement for an off-street parking would do onto a lot. It would also, again, encourage sprawl and car dependency, which many of us have said, sometimes in public, sometimes in private conversations amongst ourselves, but I have heard the majority of council say this. It would encourage car dependency and sprawl at the expense of, again, family housing. And then finally, there's the fundamental moral argument of storage for your car when you're not using it is not as important as housing for people. And by saying that these two things are equal, you are fundamentally saying, again, that you disagree, that you think car storage is just as important as housing.
Okay, who had their hand up first?
Rules
I think I had
Committee.
it first.
Okay, Alderman Fairley, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I think that anyone who has to put in additional parking would certainly can use semi-permeous material, and indeed there's probably some that are almost impervious that could easily be used. I think that we come in here and it seems like almost every meeting we hear problems about parking. We've got the Hillman garage coming down. We've got other parking issues. In Ward 3, I'm fortunate we don't have as many parking issues as other parts of the city have, but I think this is it's extremely important to maintain this. If somebody wants to have or put up an ADU, they've got to be prepared as part of that process to put in a parking space, or if they have a driveway, there's nothing that says you can't park 2 cars in a driveway, and it's actually nothing here that says that the occupant of the ADU has to use that driveway. It doesn't say you can't park on the street. It just says if you're going to have an ADU, there's got to be room off the street, and that's what the bill says. That's the way I interpret it. I think it's an important provision, and I don't think it's appropriate to take that requirement away. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson, then Alderman Turney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules Committee did respond to all of these amendments. And so on this amendment, we gave it an unfavorable recommendation and a vote of 2-1. So I'd like that in the record.
Thank you. Alderman Turney.
Yeah, I was just reading the Planning Commission's report, and I'm looking at the bigger picture with this little piece of amendment, is that we've seen what adding parking requirements have done to the zoning of this city. No offense, Dr. Nash, this is but you know what I mean. There's these giant parking lots because we require all this parking. So I think this is a first step, a baby step, if you will, to get out of that. Out of that zoning, that kind of old zoning. And also, I can say this because in my ward, they would not be able to do that. You'd start seeing gravel on front lawns, which is not what you want to do. But I just think that we have to get away from this automatic thinking that a car comes with whatever you want to do in the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to state that the impact of cars and parking issues on this is being overblown by an older mindset for how cities should be designed and built. Other jurisdictions that have done this have only seen an increase of 1 to 2 cars per accessory dwelling unit. So let's just, for the sake of this argument, call it 2, I guess. That's the worst case scenario based on data from other jurisdictions. And these only go on 1 to 2% of lots, even on the best cases scenarios where cities have implemented this. So we are going to be seeing a large amount of cars and traffic influence, a large amount of traffic, cars and traffic come into this if these are constructed and built without the off-street parking requirement. Yeah.
Okay, ready to vote?
Yep.
All those in favour of the Shanamire Amendment number 2, we might need to do a roll call, say aye.
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 Roll call. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
No.
Alderman Pennell Charles?
No.
Alderman Finlayson?
No.
Alderman Shanamire?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Yes.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Abstain.
Alderman Tierney?
Aye.
The mayor, my ward is all over the place on this.
Yeah.
But door knocking Saturday, I had a very impassioned plea.
Don't door knock. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. From someone who lives on a street that there is no off-street parking, and he's saying, if you do this, I can never have an ADU. And he was really very passionate, almost to the point of tears, and that did hit home with me. So but I also have people that are very adamant in the ward that they want this. I'm abstaining. I can't make a choice either way.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Shanamire?
I have a question. What was the vote, Madam Clerk?
It was 5 in favor, 3 noes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Alderman Shanamire?
Yes, I'd like to move amendment number 3.
A second, please.
Second.
Amendment number 3 is another Planning Commission recommendation. It lifts the short-term rental ban on accessory dwelling units. This is the one that I think has kicked up the most controversy amongst my colleagues. I understand we have a lot of passion regarding this issue on both sides. I'm coming to this, one, from a best practices angle. Recommendations by the AARP, including AARP Maryland, along with the book Backyard Revolution by Cole Peterson, which is seen as the fundamental no-wall piece on accessory dwelling units, have shown that when you take away flexibility in the use of accessory dwelling units, you take away from the flexibility in financing that banks are willing to provide for their construction. So you would be putting a dampener upon their construction for that. We have also heard some people share their worries that their STR license may be taken away. However, I think we clarified that a little more tonight, that is not the case. But by taking away that flexibility source, you do essentially hurt financing because they're worried about the resale value overall on the property. Second of all, I will offer my own situation for how I came to Annapolis. I've been very upfront that the reason I've been able to stay in this city and get my start in this city was because I was living in an off-the-books accessory dwelling unit. What I also have started adding with some people is my situation was a month-to-month lease, which we would call a short-term rental. As, correct me if I'm wrong, short-term rental defines 90 days or yes. Correct, Dr. Nash? I would have been, extra excluded, I suppose, because my current situation was apparently against the rules. But it would also exclude people like me and people trying to figure out their situation, just trying to get a feel for how our city can live, figure out if they can enjoy it, and potentially put roots down. That said, this is one of the situations where I understand, agree to disagree, and that's where I propose.
Alderman Gay?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I actually, I was disappointed with this amendment because I continue to think that it undermines the purpose of the bill and the conversation that created this legislation. Whether that be intentional or unintentional, I don't know people's motives. But I think, it definitely undermines what we had hoped to do. I do hear the concern from the constituents, and I think that's what, bothers me a little bit, because I do care primarily about our, working class families in this city that are just getting by and feel that they're being priced out, because I feel that that is the boat that I will eventually be in. I'm still young now, but in my 30s, if I ever hope to find a home in this town. I think the part of the reason I'm disappointed, because there are certain elements of greed involved with housing in the city of Annapolis, in particular when you look at, like, if you just go and look for a unit to rent. A one-bedroom over off in the Spa Creek apartments, just besides Truxton Park, start out at $1,750. That's the one bedroom. Okay, now if they throw in a nice refrigerator and microwave, you're up at like 18 and some change. I think it's ridiculous. When you look at these above the store rentals here on Main Street, there was one in particular that was just listed above this subway, $2,800 a month. And at some point, it's no longer I need to afford my property, but it's I'm being greedy as hell. And for those individuals, I think that that's a problem, and it's just not okay. When you can look at your, the housing situation and try to completely take one over on it, and that upsets me. Now, for examples like we've heard through tonight, where you have working class families trying to make ends meet and they're worried about their mortgage, I understand that. Do I think it's best practice for us to advertise the use of short-term rentals for housing? No. Are there benefits from it? One benefit that I have thought of if voting for this legislation is that I was successful in the last General Assembly session working with Delegate Henson and Senator Alfrith in carving out that 3% tax. That if we are to pass Amendment 3 and short-term rentals are included in that, there would be a percentage of funds that would go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which to me makes me happy because I care very much about that. There is also the opportunity and possibility, as mentioned here tonight, to bring back an amendment at some point for this legislation. And that amendment could be to take a different approach with affordable housing and incentivize property owners to build, rent to low-income families or to rent it at a certain market rate. And I support that as well. I know that's an amendment Alderman Arnett brought to the table previously when we last discussed the accessory dwelling unit bill. And so there are avenues here to make affordable housing work. I do want to be on the record saying that I'm extremely disappointed that this amendment was introduced. And now I feel that we are kind of have our backs against the wall type of thing here, because the way it's been, broadcast to the public is that you're either for accessory dwelling units and the idea of affordable housing, or you're for short-term rentals and the idea of allowing individual property owners to afford to live in this city. And we created an unnecessary beef where everybody could have wanted this: the property owner, the renter, and the city. And I just don't know why it's boiled down to this. We've talked about some of the successes: Kentucky, Portland, etc. And so, I get why this was introduced, but I'm pissed off, and because it really undermines affordable housing, and I feel like I have no other choice but to vote for it, because you have these middle-class residents who we care deeply about, who are under the impression that we are basically taking their housing financing from them, and that's the last thing I want to do. So, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The public testimony on this amendment has been really helpful. And I do see the value to having short-term rentals as an option. I mean, I was concerned for the similar reason, as it doesn't necessarily bring as much affordable housing per se, but I think it does give people flexibility in terms of home ownership. But also, as you've heard tonight, there's some people who just don't want to do long-term rentals. And I think if we force them into that, they just might not use that structure for anything. But I have a number of, my concern with short-term rentals has always been the density. And I don't think this, especially if some of our later amendments pass that requires ownership, occupancy on the property, then I don't think there's going to be a risk of this becoming out of control short-term rental. So with that said, I do plan on supporting this.
Alderman Annette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm in sympathy with the alderman from Ward 6, my colleague Alderman Gay. If the overall purpose of this is to increase housing for long-stay people, then it seems to me that short-term rentals is antithetical to that. I've heard the concerns expressed by members in my community and here tonight, and we've heard it several times. But I think we've heard Dr. Nash say, if you want to do a short-term rental, you can do a short-term rental. You can go ahead and apply for the license and do a short-term rental. You don't have to be an accessory dwelling unit to have a short-term rental. So I am inclined to say no to Amendment 3 in the spirit that this legislation was introduced, which was to attempt to provide more affordable housing to those people who need it. And so I will not be supporting Amendment number 3.
Alderman Tierney, then Alderman Pound, then Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think yearly we probably accept $2 to $2.5 million visitors to the city in a 7 square mile area. Mostly because of the water, the Naval Academy, Historic District, and others. So we accommodate those visitors with short-term rentals. Unfortunately, with this bill, we're trying to conflate, or it's already been conflated, 2 policy issues. One of them being affordable housing and the other one being short-term rentals. The burden, for lack of a better word, of short-term rentals is primarily in the wards that are closer to these amenities, such as the Naval Academy and the Naval Academy. That would be Ward 1, Ward 2, and Ward 8. If we allow these accessory dwelling units to have, let me qualify, if we allow new accessory dwelling units to have short-term rentals, I would predict that a majority of those would be short-term rentals and not long-term housing. Very logically, why would somebody rent something out for $2,200 a month when they can get $2,500 in a weekend? So the market drives what happens. We have never gotten ahead of the market with short-term rentals, and this is the time to do that. As far as affordable housing, if we want to have a policy, if we want to be the grown-ups in the room about affordable housing, then we have to establish rules to have affordable housing. So I'm against Amendment 3 because if we allow the short-term rentals, that opens the door to having more short-term rentals. The existing short-term rentals are fine. They can operate as short-term rentals. I'm really happy that that's clarified, that they're basically grandfathered, if you will. If they opt to apply to have an accessory dwelling unit in the near future, then they will have to make a decision on whether or not they want to continue the short-term rental. But we have such limited real estate
that again, we set the policy, and if we want affordable housing, we have to make some tough choices, and I think this is one of them. The other reason I'm adamant about this is in Ward 1, for example, I decided to run again as alderman, and you have to live in your ward. And on one salary, it was very limited. In Ward 1, I am basically priced out of my own ward. If there was an accessory dwelling unit, a thing above a garage, or, I think that would be appealing versus, we bought a condo. So it's that missing middle, and it can happen. And the last thing I want to say is affordable housing means different things in different wards. So that's a really important point to make. And I firmly believe that if we hold firm on this, we're actually going to get affordable housing in wards 1 and 2 and 8, where we can accommodate this missing middle instead of having just $1 million homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Payan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While the motives of those that introduced this ordinance may be to provide, to further the working class workforce housing or less expensive housing, I don't think this accomplishes that in any way, shape, or form. But having said that, if we are having ADUs, and I don't know what the final vote will be, to be honest, in my ward, I'd much rather have ADUs such as my friend in the back of the room has at his house, and he's not alone. There are others that have that, so that people are only there on weekends and occasional holidays rather than all the time. I never thought that I would be here speaking in favor of STRs under almost any circumstances, but I kind of find myself at least a little bit in favor of it here. I don't see, if we're going to have ADUs, how having them as short-term rentals is harmful. Quite the opposite. I think it may be better to have them as short-term rentals than permanent dwellings.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules Committee heard all of these same arguments and came down on the side of not believing that this amendment would do anything to help us with affordable housing. And so the Rules Committee opposes this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chandler.
So, motivations, I do want to stress again, I'm not under anyone's secret cabal's influence. This is a best practices through research and nothing more. What I will say is the overall impact, if short-term rentals are having that big of an impact on our overall housing market for long-term, it is because there is a severe lack of housing allowed in the city itself. So that is, I think, more of the key issue than short-term rentals itself. With that said, I understand my colleague's opposition to this. There is another amendment later down the pike to help some other situations from people getting taken away. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, I think we're pretty clear.
Just need one more, just bona fide clarity to the people at home, for the people in the room. Regardless of what takes place with this next vote, individuals will still be able to obtain and use a short-term rental permit. Correct?
If they meet all of the code requirements.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm believing in amendment number 11. So. Okay, so we have a first and a second on number 3. We're going to have to do a roll call for this, please. All those in favour? I'll start with me, sorry.
Mayor
Aye.
Alderman Payon.
Aye.
Alderman Kendall Charles.
No.
Alderwoman Kalason.
No.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gay. Aye. Can I say it? Thank you.
I think he's got
Alderman
to say his
Savage.
vote.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
No.
And Alderwoman Tierney.
No.
That motion passes. 5 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, what was it again?
5, 4.
Passes.
Okay. It passed? It passed? Yep. All right, Alderman Savage, number 5. We're skipping number 4, Ellie, right?
I'd like to move Amendment 5.
Remove amendment number 5? Move, sorry.
Second.
Okay, can you walk us through it?
Just bring it up here. Amendment 5. So my concern, and how did Amendment 2 go?
Amendment 2 passed.
Passed, okay. So my concern that I'm trying to address with this amendment is that that any new ADU, newly constructed, would be adding impervious surface. So any additional impervious surface that we add means we're getting more untreated runoff into the bay. And I know we have a number of goals and commitments in our comprehensive plan, or also federal requirements to to improve our water quality. So I tried to find something here to craft something that would allow, or that would require any new ADU they'd have 2 options. They could treat or manage the proposed impervious surface, or they could remove it elsewhere on the property. And that's the similar lot coverage requirement that we have for critical area. So this would allow them it says the department can work with them to determine if they need to put in something like a rain barrel or a rain garden to help treat the new surface, or they could remove impervious surface elsewhere. So they could take up a driveway, walkway, patio, something like that, and put in permeable surface of some kind. So that's in a nutshell what it does.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yep.
I'll second it.
So it's
It
been
hasn't been already.
It's on the floor. Any further discussion? On Schneidermeyer?
This introduces permits that I think we should, this is good. This is a good amendment.
And is a rain barrel satisfactory?
We haven't determined that yet.
Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Rules Committee gave a favorable recommendation for Amendment 5 at a
Okay.
3-0 vote.
All right, Alderman Gay?
Just quick question. Does this include walkway for those, especially if you're talking about promotion of AARP? You need some sort of, surface to be able to use a walker or some sort of thing on. Does that include that or no? Would that go against?
Dr. Nash?
I would think if it were additional impervious surface being built specifically to connect a new accessory dwelling unit to a driveway or a street or something like that, then that would count.
Okay.
Okay, let's take the vote. I think we can just call it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. We have next the Savage Shanamai Finlayson Amendment number 6. Who'd like to move that?
Second.
And who'd like to talk us through it? Alderman Shanamai?
So I find myself in a position where I'm actually talking through an amendment with my name on it that I actually personally oppose.
Your committee.
But it was a committee amendment, so my name is on there. What I will say is the goal of this is an occupancy requirement for the owner of the accessory dwelling unit to reside in either the principal or accessory structure on the lot, and that they are both in common ownership. The common ownership provision is unnecessary because by accessory dwelling units' nature, they are part of a single zoned lot, so they are not really able to be subdivided and split off. So it doesn't really do anything good or bad on that front, it just gives it a definition. Owner occupancy requirements are another one of those things that go against best practices of these overall. However, what I will say is this would probably guarantee that the STRs are owner occupied in one of those two units. And so we wouldn't be seeing a massive overall taking over of out-of-town short-term rentals coming from this, because this would guarantee they'd be owner occupied. So actually, I'm going to vote in favor of this. That's overall good.
And Dr. Nash, can the owner be in the smaller unit? Does it matter which one they're in?
Nope, either one is fine.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Sorry. Alderman Pindell Charles, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This amendment is a perfect example of what Ward 3 is talking about. And there have been numerous conversations with planning and zoning concerning whether an owner lives or does not live in the principal structure. And we've had many complaints about that in Ward 3. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. We've had a lot of conversations about enforcement, and this is definitely the crux of the argument for Ward 3 regarding ADU legislation, whether the owner lives there or not. And we have many instances where that's not the case, and there's been a lot of confusion. Thank you.
Alderman Finlayson, then Alderman Gay. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. The Rules Committee gave a favorable recommendation to this amendment with a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Alderman Gay.
Yeah, thanks. This is an amendment that I am against as well, because I think if you look at it, and I shared this example during the Rules Committee meeting, if I own a home with a lot big enough that I can have an accessory dwelling unit in the back, and I have, my actual home, which could be, whatever, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, let's just say Mary Hill, for example, because they got nice houses. So, and I have that. I want to rent out my main house to a family, long-term use, providing, an idea of affordable housing. And I want to rent out my accessory dwelling unit short-term. I see nothing wrong with that. That's kind of the argument that we just had with Amendment 3. And are you providing affordable housing, or are you providing the short-term rental? I think that's a fix kind of in the middle, because look, the reality is, as many have stated, I might not want to rent out my backyard to a stranger. But if I have the luxury and the opportunity to rent out both my main dwelling and my accessory dwelling, there's benefits in that for all. The rentee of the main dwelling on a long-term basis, the short-term rental revenue received. So I think that is where I stand on this legislation. I think it's kind of, as my colleague has alluded to, best practices, which I hate to use because it gives the idea that, you know, something has to be a certain way in order for it to be most effective. But I do feel that this would be a best practice to completely remove the owner occupancy requirement and allowing the option to either long-term rent or short-term rent. So that's where I stand on it.
Thank you. Alderman Odette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So implicit throughout all the discussion on accessory dwelling units, and I think this is the good part about accessory dwelling units, is a tool for a homeowner to be able to have a lot of flexibility to do many different things. One, they can have family, they can create a separate unit and have family, could be in-laws, could be a younger sibling, come and live there but be separate so that you're not sharing the same kitchen, for example. It could be that you have caregivers living there so that you can age in place. It could be, and I think we heard an example, I certainly did in my ward, of a person who was recently widowed and they needed the income, and so they want the accessory dwelling unit to rent. Again, long-term, the implication. But I think Alderman Chandlemeyer put the final nail on this when he pointed out that this is owner-occupied. And bringing us back to our short-term rental discussions over and over again, the notion is that if the owner is there, the owner is going to take control over the short-term rental population. They're not going to have a intergalactic kegger going on in their own house or in their own backyard. And so I think this is, it may be already implicit. Dr. Nash certainly gave us a discussion about how it's implicit that these are all owner-occupied. They're not subdividable. You can't sell one part of it and keep the other part. But the very example that you gave, Alderman Gay, is the one that worries me the most, where the person doesn't live there at all. They rent out the principal unit long-term and they rent out the other unit short-term, and they're not there. And I think that is something that creates a great deal of anxiety on the part of my constituents. And so I will be definitely supporting this amendment. There were actually 4 amendments along the same line. I withdrew mine and Alderman Tierney withdrew hers in favor of this one, in deference to Alderman Chandlemeyer, because this one says that the homeowner has even more flexibility in that they can live in the primary unit or they can live in the secondary unit and rent out the primary unit. So I think this is a very good amendment and I fully support it.
Alderman Gay?
Yeah, I just had a question in response to my colleague from Ward 8. What is the general fear? Because I'm under the understanding that there is a age requirement to rent a home to. I think it's 18. We may have changed it to 21 in the last argument. I think we did, because I remember putting an amendment to lower it to 18 from 21 in the last short-term rental bill. So I guess my question is, why do you find it necessary for a property owner to be present to watch adults? If I'm paying you $1,500 a month or whatever, why on God's green earth do I need you to oversee what I do in the privacy of a dwelling that I'm renting from you? I don't get it.
So that age requirement in the short-term rental legislation, I believe, was determined by the Office of Law not appropriate because it's already covered by state law. And I think you are correct. State law says 18 in order to sign a contract. So the answer to your direct question is that this, again, accessory dwelling units, is an accommodation to family. It's accommodation to the family to do the several different things that I just enumerated. And that's why it is important, without regard to whether you're in the big unit or the bad unit, small unit, that the owner be there. And that, I think, is entirely consistent with the notion of accessory dwelling unit.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Thank you. Ayes have it.
Wow, me and Rhonda.
Okay, amendment number 7, Alderman Tierney.
I move amendment number 7. Oh, wow, they fired John Gruden. Sorry. Coach, his football coach. I just got a text, sorry. Anyways, amendment 7. I worked with the law office and Dr. Nash on this. We have existing inventory, specifically in my colleague Alderman Pendle Charles's ward, and I want to ensure that they're safe and they are dwelling units. And also, we also heard testimony that everybody has an accessory dwelling unit. So this provides for an amnesty period where they will come forward and be exempt from any sort of penalties to ensure that they have a license in accordance with our Title 17 requirements. And this stuff is important. You know, as an aside, the storm Ida, they found in New Jersey, a lot of those flooding deaths were from unlicensed basement apartments. And, you know, that's not to say that that could happen here, but it could. Again, this gives, we don't have the staff to proactively walk the streets. We don't have the staff to proactively walk the streets and check these all out. So this, again, gives them time, I believe 90 days, to come forward and say, yeah, I've got one and I'd like it inspected. So that's pretty much it.
Alderman Net.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So really, in terms of the accessory dwelling units, this speaks to what was a major concern of my constituents, and that has always been enforceability. And one of the things that the Citizens Coalition recommended when speaking to the accessory dwelling units is we ought to know what we have first before we start making them legal. And I think that Alderwoman Tierney's legislation gives people a time where they can say, okay, we're making these legal, come forward, let us know who you are, get registered, and there's not going to be any questions asked. And so I think this is something that for those people in my ward who are still a little uncomfortable about accessory dwelling units, this is something that would go a long way towards helping. I think it helps our staff. We keep giving them more and more things that they have to inspect and monitor, and we don't give them more staff. And so if we get people to come forward and tell us about their ADUs and actually tell us about their SDRs as well, that makes it much easier for the staff to monitor. And the number one reason for monitoring we have to recollect is life safety. We want to make sure that these units are safe, that they have the proper alarm systems and egress and all the other things, don't have lead-based paint. And so this is something to say to the community. And Dr. Nash, even when we were talking about it, said she expects help from the city council members in terms of promulgating this amnesty period through our mechanisms to communicate with our residents, and that would help them a lot. So I strongly support this amendment.
Thank you. Alderman Shannon is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was amendment when it was first introduced. I don't want to say I was against. I had mixed feelings on it, but the more I've kind of studied, learned the intent behind it, is I am very supportive. One of my biggest priorities when I first introduced this, and from my first meetings with planning and zoning in the law office when we were getting into the nitty-gritties of this, was I want accessory dwelling units, whether they're in garages, attics, basements, or standalone structures, I want them seen as a safe, legitimate form of housing. This is a good step in clearing that up. I think there have been some misconceptions thrown out about the overall safety of these structures, and this is a good way to address it. Sorry, I got in the habit of walking away from the mic.
I was up at 4 o'clock this morning. Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, was it pickleball? The Rules Committee gave a favorable recommendation to this amendment on a vote of 3-0.
Okay. Everybody ready to vote? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it.
This helps.
On to amendment number 10.
So moved.
It's the Arnett amendment.
Mr. Mayor,
First
this
and a
is,
second. Thank you.
this is, I did second. This is simply adding a definition to the definition section of Title 21.
Alderman Schnellmeyer, then Alderman Gay.
I don't think this hurts the bill at all. It provides a bit of clarity and definition, and yeah, I have no issues with it. And I think if some people feel better having a definition added onto there, it's fine.
Thank you. Alderman Gay.
Yeah, I had a quick question about, just for Dr. Nash. Is there a preference from you maybe in listing out additional definitions here? Maybe, because I'm worried that we're just limiting it. In particular, I'm thinking of some of the new innovations into, quick housing that would not fall under the name accessory dwelling unit, but are accessory dwelling units. Like if you do like one of those Amazon homes that are like 50 grand where you just kind of unfold it, that's technically an accessory dwelling unit, but it's not named an accessory dwelling unit. Would that harm the process?
Well, there are certain structures that wouldn't meet our building code, wouldn't be building code compliant. And I don't know what this Amazon home is, but for example, in the city, you can't have a dwelling unit on wheels. So you couldn't have an RV parked in your driveway and say, this is my ADU.
Okay. I don't know if it's on wheels, but I'll find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, the Rules Committee gave this amendment a favorable recommendation also. 3-0 vote.
Thank you. Okay, ready to vote? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstain.
Abstain? Yep. Now, Alderman Schnellmeyer, 11.
11's not really necessary with 3, but the goal of 11 was to grandfather in people with existing short-term rental licenses and something that could be called an accessory dwelling unit.
So we don't need to,
But it's irrelevant now, so I guess I'll withdraw it.
All those, we didn't have to withdraw it because we didn't bring it forward, so. Okay. I think we're at the end now. Is there a motion to amend 09-21 on second reader?
As amended.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
So I'm going to just defer to the city attorney here on substantive.
Did you ask for a nay?
It's the council's motion, Mr. Mayor. You got to record. Yeah, is there, you have to do the wording there.
Okay, is there a motion to vote on whether the amendments to 09-21 are substantive? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think Alderwoman Pindell-Charles.
Sorry, Alderman Pindell-Charles?
I heard a motion. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I heard a lot of yays.
I'm not sure either, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we can redo that again? No? Okay.
I wasn't allowed to say nay if that's my vote.
Oh, I thought we heard you say nay. I apologize.
Where are we, Mr. Mayor? I'm not sure.
So we're about to vote on whether 0921 as amended, is there a motion adopted as amended on second reader?
Okay, it's only second reader.
That was the last motion that you made?
No.
No,
What was the last
whether
motion?
It was substantive amendments.
What was the one before the
There
substantive?
was a motion to amend it.
There was a motion to amend.
Yep.
You passed that.
A motion to amend, wait a minute, I see
Adopted
Regina
as
waving
Motion
her
to
hand.
adopt as amended.
Wait, I'm confused.
They did it a little bit out of order. The motion to find out if the amendments were substantive was supposed to be before the motion to.
Well, I was going to go into that.
sorry,
There was no motion on whether there were
Right,
amendments or
but he didn't
substitute.
ask.
There was no motion. So the only motion you had was, are we ready to amend? There was a motion that passed. Now you move to whether or not there's a vote on the amendments or substantive. There was no motion. There was no word.
There was a
from the
motion
council.
where everyone said yay.
That was to see if it was with the amendments.
Approved as amended.
I heard it.
Can
I heard a lot of yays.
clarify?
And I didn't hear, do we have any
We're going to let
nays?
Regina tell us what we are.
Let me just say, the mayor asked were the motions of substantive. Nobody said anything.
That's what
So we went to the vote to adopt as amended on second reader, and everybody voted in favor, and the mayor didn't ask for anybody in opposition.
Thank you.
And that's where we are.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're
But
right. You're right.
It still has to come up on third reader.
Come on,
correct?
third reader now.
Sometimes I'm crazy, but sometimes I'm not.
You're good, you're good.
There were a lot of amendments, so thank you everyone for your patience there. So is there a motion to adopt O-9-21 on third reader?
Second.
Second.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley,
Aye.
Alderman Payon.
Now, this is third reader, correct?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
As
Alderman
amended.
Kendall Charles.
As
No.
amended, right?
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Gage.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Alderman Tierney.
Wow.
All right. Now, updates from the mayor. Just kidding.
After your invocation.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is O-1221, Police Enhancement Community Engagement.
Is there a motion,
Sorry, where are we?
O-1221?
21.
Oh, for peace? Oh, yes. I'd like to make a motion to withdraw.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Oh, can I just,
Discussion, yep.
yeah, can I just give some context? First of all, I want to thank all of my co-sponsors who helped out with the legislation. Also thank the Office of Law and City Manager's Office, and also the Police Department. I've already documented the amount of effort that went into this, and I think it was worthwhile. I do intend to work with everybody, including the Police Department and the ACLU next session to see what we can reintroduce. I'm withdrawing it now for a number of reasons. I think it just got too late in the session. This is a big ordinance. Parties were still a bit uncomfortable with it. We made a lot of changes with the ACLU and the Police Department, and we didn't really have a chance to really bring that back to the public either. So I think we'll bring back in some form. Maybe it'll be separated out. We don't know, but I'm still committed to seeing what we can do to create some policy to help build, police department we want, and that can really build the trust and peace. And I do want to say, related to the earlier topic on that my constituents and I mentioned about Parkside Reserve, and the things that happened this weekend, I do want to just call out and say the police that showed up to that event were incredibly professional and accommodating, and I do want to definitely say thank you to, they're very patient with my constituents, and especially Corporal Davis, who was responding to us that morning. So it made me proud just seeing how they behaved themselves. So I do want to thank them.
Thank you, Alderman Shanamai, then Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the just incredible research and work and energy put forward by Alderman Savage in all of this. His dedication to trying to pass something that I think could have been to the benefit of our city is commendable. It's wonderful. Something I would like to say is none of us went into this bill trying to directly criticize our own police force. I do think we have an incredibly professional police force. Some of the work that's been done by our new chief is laudable. But just because we have a good department now doesn't mean it will be that way forever. So that is why I was a believer in this legislation, especially after all of the work and energy and amendments were put in. I look forward to seeing what gets done by the state reforms and then seeing ways that we can potentially fill in gaps that we see emerge. So, Alderman Savage, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Gay, then Alderman Pindell Charles.
Excuse me. I echo my colleague from Ward 5 and just how appreciative I am that you put in the time and effort into this legislation and the phone calls and the ACLU meetings and just so on and so on. And I know we had probably 4 work sessions on this legislation. And so the work definitely doesn't go unnoticed. I think quickly, the part for me that was concerning was the morale. And I mentioned this with Sheila, Alderwoman Finlayson, we discussed this, what morale is and how it's possible to improve it within a department. And for me, that was the one concerning thing, just because, again, you don't want to have an image or this perception that you are against the police or that you think there is a legitimate flaw within the department, as opposed to just updating what has, we perceived as outdated. And so I really did not want to see the officers, harmed or offended in any particular way. In fact, there is one officer, and I hope he's listening or somebody could get me in touch with him. He stopped me in Tsunami, actually. I was on a little date, and he just tapped on my shoulder, and he gave me, on a napkin, his number, and he wanted to talk in regards to this. And I can't find the napkin. Obviously, it was written on a napkin. Yeah, so if you out there, please find, let's talk. But they do pay attention. And I thought that for him to come up to me and just say, hey, let's talk about this, it meant a lot because there was no animosity. It was just like, let's talk and let's see what we can agree on this. And so I respect that. And I just, again, I don't want the morale of the department to be down. And then lastly, speaking of morale, because this was mentioned earlier as in reference to Lieutenant Della, I had not had an opportunity to personally engage with him as others have, but there have been members in my community who have reached out over the last couple of days and weeks, sharing how he's impacted their lives or engaged with them personally. And I think that should be recognized because that's kind of what we're pushing for in community policing, having that sort of relationship where you remember an engagement or an interaction with an officer and the impact that it had on your life. And so I thought I would share that because there are constituents grieving as well as his family. And then lastly, my grandmother used to always tell me whenever you're experiencing, death, and I'm not sure who is a believer, but of the city staff, of the department, and for his family, if you are, my grandmother used to always say, to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord. And young, you don't realize what that means, but growing up, I think in losing someone, you are able to just find some sort of safe haven and knowing that there is, a better place on the other side, and that, you can talk to them and you can reach out to them. And so I really, really do hope that his family throughout this process, feels the support of this city that really did love him. And I think that should be known. And so thank you to my colleague for introducing this. And I look forward to seeing what comes next.
Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the Public Safety Chair, I think we all realize that this week has been extraordinarily stressful for our police department. Even to the point of having to respond to certain situations over the weekend that seemed to be, just based on what I read in the paper, may have been unpleasant. That was extraordinarily stressful for our officers. Necessary, but stressful. And I don't want to throw gasoline on a fire, because that's normally not me. But I think we need to sometimes try to look inward and try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. These officers go out here every day. I work with them for 20 and a half years every day in Baltimore City. You don't know if you're going to come home. Your family doesn't know if you're coming home. You don't know. Your sergeant doesn't know. If there's a stressful job, that's it. Yes, no profession is perfect. Every profession has bad eggs, as the saying goes. But I think sometimes when we leave here, or when our family knows we're here, they know we're coming home. There's a 99.99% chance that we're coming home safely. They work all sorts of hours. Many times they don't get credit for what they do. And I think sometimes we need to think about that and the privileges that we have, because we do have a police department that I believe, and as the mayor said, best in the country. No, it's not perfect, but we aren't either. Who are we to judge? Think about it when you go home and you rest in your nice warm beds. Somebody's out here taking care of us. We can call the police 24/7. Do we want our constituents calling us 24/7? Do we? Do we? I don't think so. So sometimes we need to think about our public safety teams, whether it's the fire department, the Office of Emergency Management, or the police department. It's a hard job. I trained officers for 20 years. It's not easy. And the other thing I want to say, and like I said, I don't want to throw gasoline on a fire, but Alderman Savage, you said that they behaved themselves. And to be honest, I find that offensive. You said it a few minutes ago. The officers behaved themselves on the other day when they came out. Run the tape. Run the tape. I find that, run the tape. I wrote it down. Check it when you get home. So I find that offensive. I love you, Alderman Savage. I always will. But I think language matters. Run the tape. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to withdraw. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is O-2221, Administrative Hearing Officer by Contract.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Arnett.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to move to withdraw, but after the long discussion, I think it'd be shorter to vote on this from the last. Now, I move to withdraw O-2221.
Do we get a second?
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is O-2921, City Holidays, Juneteenth.
Is there a motion to adopt O-29-21 on second reader?
So moved.
Second. Sorry, my bad. Second.
Moved in a second. Alderman Payon.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, I did not intend to vote no to withdrawing that last motion. I was a little bit confused as to where we were. I'm not calling for a revote, but I just wanted to, I mean,
Okay.
why would I vote no when the sponsor of the bill wants to withdraw it? I mean,
Okay, thank you.
apologies.
I couldn't punch him with the arm.
So we have a motion and a second.
She's really been doing that all night.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
We're
for
on
discussion.
the discussion phase now. It's been first and seconded, correct? For
Yes,
29-21?
on Juneteenth discussion phase.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a very good bill, and some people have pointed out the similarity. Well, actually, my colleague, Alderwoman Finlayson, pointed out the difference between this and a previous bill I had introduced for Maryland Emancipation Day, in the fact that this is now a federal holiday and a state holiday. We would simply be following the process set forward by the federal government and the state government. A criticism that I do, or not a criticism of this, but a suggestion that I do think is relevant is potentially substituting one of our current city holidays for this, but I believe we cannot do that by this resolution or amendments to this resolution. I think it's done through contract negotiations with our public employees, but just wanted to point out the similarities, the differences, and something for us to potentially keep in mind in the future.
Thank you. Alderman Payon.
Mr. Mayor, I couldn't agree more that this is an important holiday, but what I don't agree with is there's no reference to, even down the road, the possibility of changing this, trading this for the date I had in mind was Maryland Day. I love my state, but I don't really see that as the important holiday that it's been over the years. I don't think it any longer is that important. The cost of $227,000 at a minimum gives me a great deal of pause for something like this. It's the 12th or 13th holiday that we celebrate here in the city, and that's a lot. I agree it's a federal holiday. I agree that probably it ought to be a holiday here, but I don't agree that it ought to, that it ought to cost the amount of money that it does. I mean, we're in a tight budget. I mean, if it even said something to the effect of, and that we intend to, make a trade at some point down the road, then fine, that'd be good enough for me. But I'm a little concerned about the cost. That's all.
Thank you, Alderman Tierney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One reason why I like door knocking is you get to talk to residents. And a resident said to me the other week, does your budget reflect racial inequities? And I was sort of taken aback and it made me pause. And he said, that really should be a policy when you look at your priorities is look how we can address racial inequities and how what a return on, an invaluable return on money that is. And I think that spoke to me tonight. I don't know if my constituent is listening, but this is an example of that. Think how far this goes with racial inequity. And so I just wanted to add that. The joys of door knocking. Thank you.
I wasn't sure, was it Alderman Savage or Alderman Gay first? Sorry.
I just want to offer a quick clarification for Alderman Payon. The direct costs are only $11,400, and that's from having to pay the essential workers. But the estimated cost of 227, that's loss. The 227,000, that's loss in productivity. That doesn't mean it's an actual cost. That just means that's an estimation based in, again, productivity. That's not even referring to lost permit fees or anything.
So we get less for our money.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but my point is it's not going to impact revenue in the city or expenses, frankly. No, it's not going to affect. The only way it's going to affect expenses is $11,400.
No.
Because that's the direct cost. 227 is just an estimate. We could ask who put it together.
Jody, you want to clarify that or not? Oh, sorry.
We just wanted to make sure you were awake.
Almost wasn't there. And you would save my question till the end of the night, right? So yes, the loss of productivity is not loss of cash coming in the door. It does mean the staff have less time to do their work. So either, as Alderman Payon said, you get less work for the money you're paying your employees, or in some cases, as my department, we'll just have to work longer hours on other days to get the work done because the work doesn't go away. So.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Gay?
Well, she just explained it great what my question was, and I appreciate Ellie's note about, racial equity within a budget. I look forward to passing this quick question, though. Jody, did you hire the assistant yet for your office? Okay, awesome. Congratulations.
We're on our way. Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Pindell Charles?
Yes. Madam Clerk, can you add me as a co-sponsor, please?
Okay, we've got a first and a second on second reader. Got Dewan? Got everybody? Thank you.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Second reader.
Second reader. All those opposed? Okay, is there a motion to adopt O-29-21 on third reader?
So moved.
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderman Kendall Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Chandler? Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
This carries.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is O-3021, market space lease agreements.
Is there a motion to adopt O-30-21 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second? I'll go to Alderman Tierney first.
Yeah, I'd like to entertain a motion to postpone this for 2 weeks till our next city council meeting.
Second.
We've gotten some testimony that we have to consider, and I've talked to the city manager about this. There's a misunderstanding of how this relates to the final plan of the City Dock Action Committee. And there's that concern, and there's also the concern of what this is and how we are to judge it. It is in the historic district. We have the lease says that the Chief of Historic Preservation should review it. And it's putting him in a difficult position without having the standards to review it. So we have to come together and figure out what this is. We have to define what temporary is, and we have to determine, is this going to be the prototype for future leases in the historic district? And that's what's getting, that's a major concern. Their thought is that the City Dock Action Committee consensus plan and the respective architect should be a part of this discussion, and it should not be independent of that. So we kind of hit a wall, and I would ask that we set up a meeting with the parties involved to discuss how we move forward to make this a successful venture for everyone.
So there's a motion and a second to postpone. We're up for discussion. Alderman Payon.
I tend to agree with my colleague from Ward 1. I think, I like the idea. I like the amount of money involved. Sometimes the devil's in the details, and I don't see any harm as long as we vote on it next time. I don't want to lose this, but I think I don't have any problem with postponing it.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
I will be supporting the postponement vote out of aldermanic courtesy.
It's killing him.
It's very much killing me. I will not say what I thought of some of the complaints brought forward, but this is a courtesy vote only, and I do want to say, though, I think if we try to push too much leverage, we're going to let perfect get in the way of something that would be a big benefit of this.
Some of those votes that come in from Florida?
Was that?
Some of those complaints come in from Florida? Alderman Gay, did you have your hand up, sir?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I am one that has complaints. I'm not from Florida, though. I generally hate the idea of doing this because I feel like, well, what about the businesses across the street? You know, what if they want to get into some sort of formal lease agreement with the city too? I'm not gonna say what I think. You know, the market house is involved, etc. I just don't know. I think there are some concerns about uniformity amongst the look and appeal of this. I'm looking through here. There's no set regulation when you talk about tenant equipment, furnishing, and personal property. It just says that they would pay for all of it. There should be some uniformity included in that, like they do in DC and other places where the outdoor dining scene looks appealing. It's just not a bunch of random tents and, various pieces of furniture thrown together. There is also quiet enjoyment. The tenant may peacefully and quietly have and hold and enjoy the premises for the term of this lease, subject, however, to the terms of this lease in compliance with these terms. Does that mean that they can just host any event without Yeah, I know, but I'm just, because I know it'll be brought back and it'll probably be passed because everybody supports it. So, and then also the utility services and repairs and maintenance. So it says that they would take care of all of those costs. So will they be reimbursing the city for wages on top of it says snow removal and trash pickup and all that stuff. That is done by Public Works, correct?
That's out of order. The motion is to take.
Yeah, we're just trying to postpone this.
Okay, you're gonna postpone it and then vote on it in 2 weeks without me getting my concerns out. So I'm gonna do it right now because I'm not voting on it.
I know you'll get them out next week too. So
No, I'll let you have your fun. I'll be like, go ahead, you know?
Okay, so the utilities run underneath the street, and Public Works will have to have access to those utilities. So that's in the lease. The snow removal for that small section, they will be responsible for. So they'll have to shovel the snow from that area that they control. But the utilities is a matter of access to those utilities by Public Works.
And trash and pickup?
Trash and pickup is, trash collection, storage is all their responsibility for that area.
Okay, and so will there be well, I guess individual complaints would have to just go through you?
Complaints about the way things are maintained
upkeep,
down there?
The look of it, failure to monitor the space?
Yeah, that will be planning and zoning code compliance, similar to the way it is now.
Okay. And lastly, as I've expressed previously, the traffic is just a mess. It's disgusting down there.
all right, motion to postpone. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is R 2921, legislative actions on first reader, being called up again, beginning with R 2921, military bowl parade and football game.
Second.
Okay.
The Clydesdales are coming.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Pound.
will the Clydesdales be downtown or in West Annapolis this year?
Well, we want them to be in West Annapolis, but I don't know if that's related to this.
Depends
but,
on how
yeah.
you vote.
So that's still a possibility.
I haven't touched base with them, but I think they belong in West Annapolis. I think they look great there.
Okay.
So any other discussion here? Alderman Schnellmeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has there been a staff report and a finance report put together for this one yet online?
No, we just got it. I just saw it today, but this is waiving only $15,000. The amount is in the resolution, so if they incur more costs, we will be collecting that.
Okay, thank you.
And that was the same as last year?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Which, fun fact, that was the first piece of legislation I ever introduced.
All right, awesome. Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Thank you. To refer it to Finance Committee per Jody's email. Is that one? Got a note here. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the next item is R3021, Chesapeake Region Accessible Boating, Adaptive Boating Center.
Is there a motion to adopt R-30-21 on first reader?
So moved. I'd like to be a sponsor also, Mr. Mayor.
Please have me as well. And I'll do a second on because I don't think that's been done for me.
Alderman Savage, I'd like to be a co-sponsor on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to be as a sponsor also.
Everybody.
For planting? Is that, I don't even know.
Can I give an explanation?
Yeah, or it's on the floor, so yeah.
Yeah. So this is being introduced, and I apologize. It was put together late, and so I didn't have time to get this out for comment. But the intention is for this. There's a provision in the Critical Area Code has a provision that specifically allows for a waiver, and it's specifically called for accommodations. That's the name of the actual section there, accommodations for ADA. And that is because when folks are building any ADA related construction, they often need a larger footprint because of the wheelchairs and the other infrastructure needed for those for that populace. And so that can be, when you have to add more footprint, that's a problem in the critical area because that really drives up your mitigation numbers, right? And so I think that's why they have that provision in there, is acknowledging that. And since in this case, the entire facility is oriented around the disabled, that's really driven up their numbers. So in this case, they've really maximized their on-site planting. They have over 400 trees, shrubs they're putting on the site. They're putting solar panels on the building. They're putting electric vehicle chargers. They're putting permeable pavers. And the challenge is they don't get any credit for that in the critical area code. They're all benefit the environment, but they just don't get credit for that. And so even with them maximizing their credit, their mitigation, I should say, they're still left with about $40,000, I think, for fee in lieu. So they can't meet all the mitigation on site because they're limited. So they'd have to pay into the fee in lieu or find places outside to plant in the critical area, but we don't have too many places in the critical area to plant. And so that ends up being a lot of money for a nonprofit. And also you got to remember this is our property and a nonprofit's building on it for us, and we've contributed, I don't know, $1 million or so to it. And so adding this cost on top of that is a bit much. And so this resolution just kind of affirms that council would like to use that waiver that's already provided for in the code for this specific purpose. The only other qualifier I want to say is that because they have this got put together quickly is since this will be voted on at our next meeting, it'll allow anybody to have comments, including planning and zoning, because this does mention that it works off of the plan that will be approved by planning and zoning. I'm not looking to undermine them at all, but this, so their review is still going to take place, and they're going to approve it with the maximized planting, and I know they're getting close to that. And so I'm certainly open for any kind of amendments from staff or anybody who may want to have suggestions on this. The other catch, the reason I wanted to introduce it today is because I know Crab and Mr. Bollinger has some, certain requirements and targets for getting this constructed in a timely manner, because he has certain docks and other equipment, I think, that are due to arrive any day now. And so, I'm hoping we can get this, if we get this tied up by our next meeting, I think they'll be good to go with getting their other approvals and going to the Planning Commission. That's their next step, is to go to Planning Commission. I think the end of this month or beginning of next month, I'm not sure which.
Not next month.
Thank you. On we go.
Okay. Just a quick question. Can this loophole be used for residents as well?
No, it's not a loophole, because it's actually, it's meant to be a waiver. It's meant to be a variance for ADA, because they realized in constructing the law that it'd be a challenge for ADA to meet all the lot coverage. So, but no, it's only specifically for, the average homeowner could if it's for ADA. Like if they want to put something in the critical area that they're saying it needs to be done for ADA, but it has to be related to that specific use.
It's for ADA compliance. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was all. Can you add me as a co-sponsor?
All right. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You do realize we have signing die legislation. This is going to die.
Sorry?
We're at the end of our term, and you're talking about something going to the Planning Commission. It's not going to happen in this term.
No. Not the legislation, yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Vote to waive the rules?
I think we can still get it in the next meeting. Yep. Okay.
I think the next meeting will work, unless there's some need to.
Please present the next on the agenda.
The agenda is complete.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like something to say.
Yes, Alderman Pendle Charles.
To Alderman Savage, if I'm incorrect, I will publicly apologize to you at the next meeting.
She's going to the table.
Well, thank you. I'll check, but I just want to emphasize my overall message was one of thanking the police. I thought they were incredibly professional, and I did not mean to demean them at all. My overall thrust of that was gratitude and recognition. So I'm not the best speaker. I may have misspoke, but I didn't mean any negative.
Good of the order.
Anything else for good order?
Well taken.
Alderman Tyranny. So.
Yes, I have a good of the order. I want a shout out to our EMT department with my little mishap. I don't even think I hung up the phone from dialing 911, and two ambulances were there, one from Taylor Avenue and one from Eastport. I mean, within 2 minutes, and it was the best liquid Tylenol I've ever had, but I just want to make a shout out. So for those of you who think we should merge with the county, I don't think so. That's it.
Okay. Alderman Savage?
I just want to give a shout out to our newlywed here. Congratulations.
Yay! And I think we have to sing happy birthday to, right? Is that what you said?
No, I wanted to say one more thing. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Elections, we're asking that everybody, when you go out to campaign, please push the drop boxes. It'll save money, because we're paying for the postage for everything that goes to the post office. So please push the drop boxes that are sitting right in front of the polling locations.
I'll get out there.
Thank you.
And I think we've all got to sing happy birthday to Julian. Is the voice in the sky up there? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julian. Happy birthday to you. And Mark's birthday was a few days before that.
And Mark
too.
Thanks, everybody. All right, Mr. Alderman Payon.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we've probably done all the damage we could do here tonight. I move that we adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.